Hello, my name is Guy and I'm here with Kite TV this week for a Tune-Up Tuesday to tell you about what actually is a guitar. So, a guitar is a stringed instrument which creates sound when you pluck it or strum it with your fingers or a plectrum, like these examples here. Now there are three main types of guitar that we're going to talk about today. So we've got a bass guitar, an electric guitar and an acoustic guitar. And all three produce sound in different ways and work in slightly different ways. So we're going to start with the body of the guitar. And each of the three bodies that we're going to go through are all slightly different. So with an acoustic guitar you sort of think of it like a human, as if it was standing up like this. So we start with the head up here, or the headstock, which has tuning pegs which you can use to tighten the tension on the strings to make them make noise. Then we've got the neck here, which is covered with these small metal strips called frets. And what each of these frets does is when you play a note on a different fret, you get a different pitch. And then we've got the body, which on an acoustic guitar has this hole in the middle. It's called a sound hole, and it's what the sound travels through. It's how you get a big sound. It resonates inside the body of the guitar and comes out a lot louder than it would if it didn't have one, like on the electric guitar. It's also got this here, which will appear on some acoustic guitars, not on other. It's called a pick guard, and it's basically to protect the body from your plectrum, if you're playing it with the plectrum. And then we've got this, which is the bridge, which has these little pegs which hold the strings in. That's about it for the acoustic guitar. It's not got legs or arms like a human, but we can give it some legs if we just stick it on a stand like that. So, the electric guitar, start with the head again. This time all the tuning pegs are on one side. On the acoustic guitar, 3 on each side. So we've got the head and the neck with the same frets on the fretboard. And then we've got a much bigger pick guard this time. And there's a lot going on here that wasn't going on in the acoustic guitar. So we've got these, which are called pickups, and I'll go into them in a bit more detail later. So then we've got the bridge again, which unlike on the acoustic guitar, it doesn't have pegs. Instead the strings are pulled through from the back and wound on the end. It's also got these dials, which control the volume and the tone. They can control a whole number of different things. And the tone knobs are based on these pickups. We've got this sliding pickup selector, and what this does is this is basically what allows you to choose which pickup your sound is coming from. Because what the pickups do, instead of having the sound hole on the acoustic guitar, the pickups on the electric guitar are what produce the sound. The vibration from the strings rings through the pickup and is transferred with wires to this output here. And when you plug in a lead, a guitar lead, in here and into something else, the sound travels through that lead and can come out of an amplifier or a computer or whatever you happen to be putting it through. And that is the electric guitar. So both of the guitars that we've looked at so far have 6 strings, and I'll go into the strings in more detail in a bit. Now we're going to look at the bass guitar, which has 4 strings. But again, I'll go into more detail on that in a bit. So the bass guitar, very similar to the guitar. It's got the head with the tuning pegs, fretboard, frets, pickguard, pickups, bridge, and volume and tone knobs. And this output, which again, when you put a guitar lead in, can take you out into an amplifier or a computer. So it's exactly the same as a guitar, but with 4 strings. And we'll go into that in a bit. Now there are a couple of different types of guitar that you can get as well, that will be slightly different in how they look. I'll show you a couple of examples of what I've got, but there's hundreds of different things and it would take a long time if I tried to show you it. So we've got this, which is a Les Paul, and all that's different in it is, like the acoustic guitar, tuning pegs on either side. Its pickups are different. There's only 2 and they are metal, but we'll talk about that in a bit. The pickguard looks a bit different. The bridge is bridged the same. Instead of coming through the back, it comes through this bit here and along. And the pickup selector is up here instead of down here, like on the Stratocaster that I was using. That's pretty much all the difference here. And here we have a 5-string bass guitar. We'll talk about the strings in a moment. but it's got pickups on either side like an acoustic guitar. It's got a pickup selector, which the other bass didn't have, and it's got 4 tone and volume knobs. They all do different things: bass, treble, volume, and a couple of different tone options. It's also got different pickups, which we'll talk about in a second. Now, before we talk about pickups, I want to quickly talk to you about strings. So, the guitars obviously have 6 strings, basses have 4 strings, but there's lots of different options you can get within those strings, as well as having extra strings, like the bass guitar I showed you, which has 5. You can also get guitars with 7 or 8 strings, basses with 6 strings. I've seen a bass with 12 strings. There's lots of different options, but generally the standard is 4 strings on a bass, 6 strings on a guitar. On a guitar, you're going to have them tuned as E, A, D, G, B and E, generally. But there's lots of different tunings you can have, like for example this, which is open E tuning, which is used a lot in slide guitar because it gives you that bluesy sound just by putting your slide up against the strings in a straight line. And there's lots of other tunings as well, which you can look up in your own time. But the standard tuning for a guitar is going to be E, A, D, G, B, E. So for a bass guitar, that's just going to be the first 4 strings, E, A, D, G. That's all you're going to have for a 4-string bass guitar. When you get into extra strings, it can change. You can either get strings going higher, strings going lower. In the case of my 5-string bass, it goes down to a B, but you can get ones that go higher and lower. So now that we've finished talking about the strings, we're going to quickly go into pickups and how the guitar produces the sound. So we've talked about the acoustic guitar and the sound reverberating around the sound hole and coming out. That's fairly simple. But what's more complicated is the use of these pickups. So, for example, on this guitar, we've got these 2 pickups which are the same, and this pickup which is slightly different. These 2 are called single coil pickups. This pickup is called a humbucker pickup. And back on the Les Paul, we've got these which are P90 pickups. And finally, not to go into too much detail, this guitar has these pickups which are called active pickups. And the difference with active pickups is they need battery power to work. So they've got a little slot here, battery goes in, and that battery powers the pickups and makes them able to pick up the sound. And that's roughly how the pickups work, so how the sound is produced and how when you're playing through an amp, you're getting sound through it. So having talked about everything that I want to talk about, let's add in a couple of little bits that you might find on your guitar depending on what you buy. So we've already talked about this, the slide. It's something that changes the sound of your guitar drastically by giving it the ability to play between the frets. So what that does is that opens up a whole world of new notes that you can play and access. And here we've got another example of a bit of equipment that can bring you between the notes. So this is called a whammy bar or a tremolo bar. And what it does is if you play, say, a chord, you get control over that chord. Yeah? So you can play and then you can bend that note between the notes, which is similar to what the slide does. However, the difference here is that this can only go so far in either direction. This one is a loose whammy bar. It just comes on and off the guitar, and it can only bring the notes down a little bit. You can also get guitars set up with what's called a Floyd Rose tremolo, and that uses what's called string locking, which holds the strings in with a lock, meaning that everything from here to here can come all the way off and all the way on, and it doesn't affect what's happening at the other ends. And with that, I have covered everything that I wanted to cover about what is a guitar, and hopefully you've learned a little bit. And if you haven't, then you already know plenty, and that's really good stuff. So thanks for giving me all your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and keep playing.